What were you telling Christopher Diaz's stepfather?
I was saying that the public defender made no effort whatsoever to defend Mr. Diaz. That all he had to do was go online, look at the media coverage in that area of Texas where Mr. Diaz is being made an example, and the whole area there is laying for him to get back, and they're going to max him out for a small amount of dope. There's no evidence that I could find anywhere online that Texas ever extradites for small amounts of drugs, any kind of drug, never. But obviously they've made a special case here, somehow he's irritated them to the point where they especially want him back, where he has absolutely no chance to get a fair trial or any kind of trial at all, because his defense is already disallowed. The state of Texas doesn't recognize it. So you could argue constitutionally he's not getting any kind of a shot at a fair trial, and that in that particular area he's certainly not going to get a fair trial. And the public defender made no effort to apparently no effort to research the case or to look into these kinds of facts of the case. That wasn't really a bail jumper because he wasn't hiding. He wasn't a fugitive because he wasn't hiding from anybody. They just went out there and arrested him.
What happened today?
What happened today?
In the Mendocino courtroom.
Well, what happened today is what often happens in Mendocino County. The liberals get all excited about a liberal judge being elected to the Superior Court. In this case, Ann Mormon. Let's elect Ann. She's one of us. She's a good, fair, compassionate person. And what happens? We get into court and Ann takes a powder. Ann ducks. And so shoves us off to this retired judge from Sonoma County who just says, nothing I can do. My hands are tied. They go through their procedure, and that's it. It's farcical. It's going. Yeah, it's going through the motions here.
Just pass on a case that you don't want to take.
She said her calendar was crowded, but you could see for yourself in her courtroom how many people were in there. 3 guys?
Well, all the rest of the cases were already done, matter of fact.
Yeah. So
this was the final case.
That's right.
She ducked out.
She just ducked out. She saw that there were people there watching the case, and she said, "Oh no, I don't want to do this because I'm a nice person. I'm a liberal and everything. Let him do it. Let the old hatchet man from Santa Rosa do it."
What is the family story? What brought Chris to Mendocino County to begin with?
His illness.
You say his illness. What was going on in Texas regarding his illness?
Well, he had severe asthma and multiple chemical sensitivity disorders. He was the environment around him was very effective to his life. In Central Texas, the pollens were wreaking havoc on his allergies, and then in North Texas, the dry, arid air wasn't any better.
And what alternative did he reach for here in Mendocino County? Why come here?
He started on an organic diet in Texas. North Texas wasn't providing for his organic diet. It's real hard to find any good quality food there, and that was very important in his healing process, because you remove the poisons from your body, and your body has the opportunity to heal.
But what else did California have that Texas did not?
Cannabis, hemp. Medicinal marijuana. It's a savior. To him. It's the most powerful bronchial dilator, natural bronchial dilator, and it's a healer. It's a healing plant.
Courtney, you're his recommending
physician.
physician. Can you tell me what your perspective is on?
There are crimes, and there are crimes of serious order. And what's happened today is a crime of the most serious order. This is not a technicality. This is a death sentence. He'll not survive in a jail that is not air conditioned. The jail that he's being sent to, 4 people have died of traumatic brain injury. The violence down there against cannabis is palpable. The environment is unacceptable. His tolerance of Western medicines, which will be all that are available, have sent him to the ICU. And it was in Texas, he told me, that the physician there said, you need to go someplace where you can use cannabis legally. So he was here for 6 years. He was legally using cannabis. He has a right to his life and the medicine that sustains that life. And he has a right to see his grandmother, who's dying at 88, take his grandchildren to see them. So this was a trip back to say goodbye. And this is because he has a California driver's license. That's all it takes to search in that state. And sure enough, here's the medicine that keeps him alive. And they're talking about, transportation or intent. His had less than an ounce, and they are going to extradite him at a tremendous cost for less than an ounce. He deserves medical asylum. And the judge, Mormon was our individual who, okay, let's set a precedent. Let's say this young man, father of 2 young children, deserves to take care of those children. He deserves life, because this is a death sentence. This is not a technicality, and this blood will be on the hands. And Rosenfield, you got to sense the callus is so thick. What's the heck? Mormon is more sensitive, and this young man's death will bother her, but she just quite didn't have enough strength to stand up and say, he deserves medical asylum. This is where his life is preserved and maintained, and he has a right to that medicine. And after 6 years of being here, this is not some kind of in-and-out lark. He deserves a much better representation from the justice in California. And we need to develop a system whereby individuals can leave this state with their medicine and go back to see family members that are dying. And that is not a crime. He has a right to life in that trip back there, and that's not violating Texas's conditions. And is he violating infringement? The federal government has patents. There are patents on COPD. I mean, his use of this medicine is hundreds of years old. The pharmaceutical industry is used to provide, like Eli Lilly. It's understood that cannabis is very useful for this condition and does not have the side effects that he had run into after 20 years of Western medicine, which, like I said, finally hospitalized him and forced him to turn away from those very toxic medications. So he understood that cannabis was important. He came here for safe use. He lived here, and because he wanted to say goodbye to his grandmother, he is now going to face a death sentence on a technicality. That is the crime. His going to say goodbye was not a crime.
Folks, I don't advocate all marijuana usage, okay? Like Pepsi and food and breathing, everybody abuses something. So I'm not saying everybody uses it in proper terms. The reason why I'm here, I just met these people because as a recreational user in my life, my whole childhood, being raised in a Christian family, I was already deemed broken and done just because I did that. And it took my mother 28 years before we sat on a mountaintop. She saw my heart. She said, wow, people can actually partake in that sacred herb, still be loving, caring, responsible human beings. We're sitting here abusing all this other crap on this planet that we've created with our own hands. It didn't come from our Creator. It says in Genesis, He created this. He made no mistake. When we abuse it, that's our mistake. It's not Creator's mistake. Quick comment about him. This is Pontius Pilate. It's that simple. He is standing as a Christos, Christ, for this purpose and cause right now. I watched it with my own eyes. I wish I was in a movie. I wish this wasn't real. But as the doctor said, this is a death sentence. This is serious, folks. He went before a judge. They all know it's unjust. None of them want the blood on their hands. I mean, this was just so much the story. And the judge did pass it on to another judge that has no heart attached to the circumstances and just had to go forward with it. Wherever this is going to go, whoever is going to see this, write the state of Texas. If you live in Texas, I'm asking you to take your tax money away from there and move out. Like, dry the whole state up, literally. They won't have anybody to pay any of their bills, no attorneys, no cops can get paid, no mayors, no nobody. If you participate in the sacred herb, call your governor and pack your bags and leave to a state that will gladly accept you and your money.
Chris Diaz is not a criminal. He is about as far from someone who commits crime as people come nowadays. He is a sickly person. He had an experience in Texas with law enforcement that caused him to have to be in jail a long time and then to be in custody and then under prosecution for a long time. And he is so sickly that both of his lungs collapsed. And they had to patch him together, sew him up. It shows that he's already extremely vulnerable as a person who's 22 years old and has the body of a 60-year-old man whose lungs collapsed. That's breathing, that's his condition. Asthma is what you know, is his nemesis. It's the thing he has to live with in life. And Texas took away his medicine. Mendocino County took away his medicine. They put him in lockup in solitary confinement so he could think about his plight for a few days. And he has come out to a community that loves him, that basically has adopted him as family. I was willing to take responsibility for him if he was granted OR or if his bail were reduced, because I'm so confident that he would not run, that he would face the consequences like he is now. The important thing is that we are here for him, but the court, the system is too punitive to be just. And whenever a system is not just, if it's too punitive to be just, don't go along with it.
Stand up.
Change it, stand up against it, whatever it takes. Well, we tried to do that, and it didn't quite work for us because extradition is outside of the criminal law setup. You know, the structure of criminal law allows you all kinds of rights and lots of leeway and months, sometimes even years to accomplish your goal or not accomplish it. He was not given that. He was not even given a single day for a hearing to come back to face another judge.
In a news broadcast a couple of days ago, the interview with the spokesperson from Eisner's identified him as a sovereigner.
That was just things that they played in the media last year that they just built up against him and his family, and just built it and built it and built it, because the poor kid, for his 16th birthday, he had a baby. He didn't get a driver's license. And so when he was traveling, he got pulled over and was quite honest and kind to the highway patrol and said, look, I don't have a driver's license. But when he got to the jail, the first thing what we heard was, oh, this is the guy that doesn't have to follow our rules. So from there, it just perpetuates. Just rumors start to fly, and then from there, you know, only 10% of the people have to believe something for everybody to start following.
I think what we did today here was witness an infectious America, and we're seeing it all the time in these demonstrations. Things are going down in this country, and this is part of the process. We wasted thousands of dollars today over this silly thing. It's not silly to him, but it is to all the rest of us. He should have just been turned loose today, as far as I'm concerned. You're right, he's not a criminal. He's not a criminal. Not by the stretch. You know, we're saddled with this third strike thing. I don't even know if the kid's got a previous strike.
Got nothing.
I don't care.
Nothing.
It's just a waste of time, money, and his life. It's terrible. Doesn't somebody have any compassion in the court system? You know, let's revert back a little bit. About 6 months ago, I read about this teacher in Willits, and he's banging a 15-year-old girl. So at 8:30 in the morning, he's going to get sentenced, Judge Brennan. So I go down there just to audit the case. They adjudicated that by numbers. All you people here for Chris Smith, I'll say his name. Well, everybody stood up at me and my buddy. Oh, okay, the judge says, well, looks like he's okay. That was statutory rape if I ever saw it in my life. He was texting himself nude, masturbating over the internet, just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. He's probably back teaching in that private school. I see these little tickles and things start happening. You lose all respect for your justice system.
Well, you can already see the judge, the history of the judge in Texas, who, you know, his little 16-year-old daughter videotaped the beating that she received from her judge father, and she put it on YouTube. It's got about 2 million videos. Just a typical spare the rod, spoil the child Texan. Okay, and the video beating of his daughter that he says, hey, it was just a little spanking. 2 million people have watched that and are completely appalled.
For myself, I am ordained. I love Yeshua. He saved my life. He's also clarified me of what's okay and what's not. The church, strongest stronghold in the whole country. If you can hear me, my brothers and sisters in Christ, and you know what is just, call Texas, call the governor, and do something, because this will fall into your home. I guarantee it. This flows downhill.
I've lost all. This government has no credence anymore. And, you know what? We're all yeah,
it's
is.
all profit
driven.
There's no standing here at all.
No.
The standing that Texas claims is that Chris has harmed the dignity of the state. And the district attorney is going to stand there for the state and say, you harmed us by bringing your medicine in here. You've harmed us.
So what is this?
This is the petition.
Don't extradite this man back to Texas to a death sentence. Texas laws are barbaric. They want to send him away on a murder rap sentence of 5 to 99 when the federal sentencing guidelines would only give him a maximum of 6 months.
Did you have an opportunity to hug your son before he left?
No, I did not. I did not have an opportunity to hug him. As he was walking by, as they were taking him out, he did tell me, "I love you," and I was able to say, "I love you" back to him. I feel really uncomfortable. I don't really know.
Okay. Well, he spoke up, and
or...
he tried to speak for himself in court, and the courtroom was empty. Do you want to just briefly talk about the Marston
motion?
The Marston motion that he attempted.
I did receive a letter from him today. It was the first letter that I've received. He did state to me in his letter, "We need help, and now Higgins is not the help we need. We need to hire a private attorney, probably one licensed in Texas as well as California." He's been saying that this Andrew Higgins has not seen him, spoken with him, come to visit him, or explain really what the process is. And he's been able to get the information himself inside there. That is the extradition law. There's more than one page here. Andrew Higgins has repeatedly said there's just one section here. It's just the identity. Once they prove the identity, then they'll know who you are and you'll be sent back. There's actually more pages here of things that could be taking place if we had a paid-for attorney, someone that isn't just paid for or working for the state, but actually working on his behalf. This process has gone so fast without really anyone sitting down to explain to us what's going on or how to receive help.
And what was the Marston motion?
The Marston motion was to have the Andrew Higgins removed as his attorney and have another attorney of record come on, someone that would actually look through all of the paperwork instead of just one section.
You were there when he was apprehended by Mendocino County deputies.
Yes.
Can you tell me how they found out where he was and what happened at the scene?
There was, actually it started the day before. There's a young man who was actually engaged to marry Michelle McWhorter, who is the cousin of Texas Governor Rick Perry. We actually lived on that farm for about 2 years. There was some conflict when we lived on the farm with the man. He actually came to the harvest market on Saturday. My son was at the harvest market. I was actually next door at a house there in the village. My son was taking his son and putting him in the car seat, about to leave, pulled up, came over and assaulted my son with the car door of his vehicle. When I heard something going on, I went outside to find out. I went around the corner of the parking lot of the harvest market to find out what the yelling was about. And my partner, Opa, Sean, he also came around to find out what was happening, where Alan proceeded to hit him with his vehicle. This was all on Saturday, the day before the arrest. On Sunday, we were at the harvest market about the same time as we had been the day before. This time he didn't approach us. He sat across the parking lot in his truck and pointed out to the Mendocino County sheriffs the location of my son, saying, "That's him, he has a warrant in Texas. That's the man you're looking for." Sheriff's deputies pulled up, got out of the car, came over to him, put handcuffs on him, and started putting him in the car. They didn't answer any of his questions. They said, "We've got a warrant for you, we're taking you in." I asked to see some type of identification from them, some type of warrant, something with the name, something saying who they were looking for. They told me, "We have a federal warrant, move back or we will arrest you as well." I continued to ask, "Are you county employees? Do you work for the sheriff's department? Can you please explain or give me some information as to what's going on?" they told me again to move back. I moved back, and before I knew it, someone had handed me a loudspeaker. And I began to announce to the people that the crowd had already drawn there in the parking lot what was happening, that they were taking this young man in, that they hadn't shown him any information or even said a name as to who he was. They put him in the car and drove away.
And since then?
This was the first time I've seen him. Since then, it's been over 30 days. They've had him here. I don't know what to say.
A resident of the Mendocino Coast has spent the last several weeks in the county jail awaiting a hearing on his extradition to Texas. Diaz was arrested in Texas for allegedly possessing half an ounce of cannabis concentrate. After making bail, however, he left the state and came back to California. Then, yesterday afternoon, Diaz had his day in court. KCYX News Director Dave Brookshire followed up with DA spokesman Mike Janella to find out more about the extradition hearing.
Mr. Janella, I understand that you sat in on Chris Diaz's extradition hearing today. And first off, what was the final result from today's hearing?
That in fact the extradition to Texas was approved by the judge. The judge was a visiting Sonoma County judge, Arnold Rosenfield. He ordered the extradition as soon as possible.
Is there any finalized date? Do we actually know when Mr. Diaz will be heading to Texas yet?
No, I don't. I did make that inquiry, and I think, of course, apparently it's all depends on available transportation, who does what. So I don't know whether he will be here at Mendocino County Jail another day or two, or if he perhaps is already on his way. I just don't know that.
Now, in terms of the case itself, I've been following some of the activist efforts that friends and family of Mr. Diaz have been organizing, and they seem to be focusing on the medical marijuana aspect of the case. But looking at the case itself, it seems as if Texas is more concerned with the bail jumping aspect of the case. What's your take on that?
That's the impression I have. I spoke directly with the district attorney in Texas, Brown County District Attorney Michael Murray. And I spoke with him directly yesterday just to get clarification on what kind of charges he faced and what this was about there. Mr. Murray said that there are two components to it. One, he had in his possession, he's alleged to have had in his possession a concentrated form of marijuana that is commonly referred to as hashish. And that the second part of that was that they say they have evidence that in fact he was on his way to deliver this hashish to someone in Austin. Now that's the allegations. The fact that Mr. Diaz, two things. One, he from the very beginning refused to cooperate with the authorities there. Drivers say apparently he's associated, again this is all secondhand, but he's apparently associated with this sovereign movement, i.e. we don't have to have driver's license, we don't have to deal with you. So apparently Mr. Diaz refused to cooperate with authorities, including the courts in Texas. And then when he was released on bail, $40,000 bail put up by his grandparents there, and then he apparently fled Texas and was found here 2 or 3 months later in Mendocino County. So they take bail jumping very seriously apparently in Texas, along with drug-related issues, and so he faces a felony bail jumping charge, in addition to the original drug-related charges.
Now, the friends and family of Mr. Diaz have referenced attempts to get the court hearing rescheduled, that they were essentially unable to make that happen. And they've also cited medical hardship. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't really have any particular legal qualifications, but I was wondering if you're aware of any situations in the past where that has been used as a mitigating circumstances in, where that has been used as a mitigating circumstance in an extradition hearing?
My understanding is that according to my district attorney people, there are no mitigations to extradition. If in fact, and the judge found that today, if in fact Texas authorities had filed the proper documentation and that Mr. Diaz in fact was, through fingerprinting and other evidence, was in fact the man that they sought, then there's no question. Period. It's done under the Federal Uniform Extradition Act among states. It's as simple as that. The judge did tell Mr. Diaz's friends and family today that if they wanted to make their arguments on his behalf, they'd have to go to Texas, because there was no room in Mendocino County. There was no room to hear this debate or argument over his medical condition, how important it is for him to have that medicinal pot, whatever. He just cut it off and said he would not hear any of those arguments.
KMUD News will be following up with Chris Diaz's parents, who stopped by the newsroom today to discuss their concerns with how the case has been handled by Mendocino.
They also asked Martin to explain why her son did not identify himself at the extradition hearing. She explains,
that's actually part of the extradition process, is the identification hearing. The way the extradition process works, and what we were explained to by a lawyer, is there's a waiver that can be signed for the extradition. If you want to go along with the extradition, you just sign the waiver and they go ahead and ship you out. If you would like to fight the extradition, the first thing you do is not give up any kind of identity. You don't sign anything, you don't say anything. You make sure that they prove that in the court. It has to be proved in the court, and that is part of fighting the extradition process. So it's not part of some sovereign movement where he didn't want to identify himself or he's being uncooperative. He is attempting to save his life.
You just heard from Rhonda Martin, who is the mother of Chris Diaz, a Mendocino County resident who faces 5 to 99 years in the state of Texas. Diaz is currently in Mendocino County Jail, waiting to be extradited to Texas, which was granted by a Sonoma County judge in Mendocino on Wednesday, November 30th.
People have formed their opinions. People don't know, the severity of, my conditions, or, the truth of the cases, and, it's not fair. It wouldn't be fair.